Hi, I'm Jess, the founder of Positive HR.
And I'm Mikey, co-host of the Leader Lab podcast, where we speak with leaders to learn about what inspires them to help you on your leadership journey.
Together, we'll explore the hearts and minds of leaders. We blend curiosity with insight as we learn firsthand what it takes to be a leader who truly inspires and drives positive change.
Join us as we dive deep into the art and science of human-centered leadership.
Hi,
Welcome
Ruth. It's great to
Leader
have
Lab.
you here. Now, Ruth, you have had such an inspiring career leading organisations with such impact and purpose. Let's kick it off and let's start with understanding and sharing with us some of the key experiences you've had to get to where you are now.
To work in incredible organisations with amazing people, I don't really know how I ended up where I am now. I guess the only career plan that I had is that somewhere along the way, probably 20 years ago, I did decide that I wanted to be a chief executive. And I did work towards that. And I think the reason I wanted to do that is because I could see that leading the organisation would give me the opportunity to kind of dabble in everything. And I'm not an expert, so I'm really well suited to a CEO role. I have no expertise in anything. So what I get to do is help other people who are experts to be the best that they can be, to bring out that expertise. And then the really hard bit is get all of that expertise to function well together. I think bringing the best out of individuals is a lot easier than then getting those individuals to function effectively with one another.
And let's talk about that. So bringing the best out of people. You're in organisations or currently with Our Village, and you've gone through quite a period of change as well, of merging St Kilda Mums and Geelong Mums and putting it under that one umbrella. And a company that is and has such a focused purpose of what they're doing and what they're set out to achieve. How do you get the best out of people, but also still keeping them aligned to the purpose of an organisation?
I joined what is now Our Village and was at the time one organisation but three separate entities. And the first thing that I did was to look at the strategy. And the strategy starts with the vision and mission of the organisation. So what is it that we're trying to achieve? And that is the big purpose. What do we want to change in the world? It can be as big and bold as you want. In fact, I believe the bigger the better. If you're in a for-purpose organisation, you're doing it because you want to make a significant difference in the world. Otherwise, honestly, what's the point? You work really hard every day. Let's do it so that we do something really worthwhile. So what's the big vision? And then what's our part of it? So at Our Village, we're fortunate that we do one thing and it has two social impacts. So we take people's pre-loved babies and children's items, things like cots, car seats, prams, clothes, toys, books, and then send those items out to families in need. And we work with experts, social workers, maternal child health nurses, and other community workers. They assess the need in the community. They refer families to us, and then we work with them to get the right items to the right people. So we are enabling them to have the basics, give them a solid foundation, a safe start. But we're also, by doing this with pre-loved items, we're also saving all of those items from going to landfill. So we're helping babies and children now with everything they need for that safe start, a secure start for the future. And we know there's a lot of research around the importance of that emotional as well as physical safe start in life. But we're also creating, hopefully, or contributing towards creating a sustainable planet for them to thrive on in the future. So these are big goals, but we're also doing it in a way that helps to contribute towards the solution of the climate crisis. Because again, otherwise, we're doing all this work, but what future are we creating for these children?
And that's a huge purpose and such a focus as well, like you said, on sustainability. When you're in the process of becoming a leader, being a leader, and for yourself and your journey of being a leader for 3 years in this organisation and actually leading the entire organisation through quite a period of change as well, of putting them under that one umbrella of our village, how do you feel that you've been able to keep the people connected to that broader sense of purpose and your ambitious goals along that journey and through that period of change as well?
Part of it is the authenticity of the passion for the cause, I hope. I care about it. So if I care about it as the leader and I can talk about it in a way that means other people will care about it, that helps. But having real clarity about what we're trying to achieve. So one of the things that we set out in our strategy, and it was co-created, this is another element that I think is really important. I joined the organisation during the second period of lockdowns in Melbourne. Total nightmare. This kind of work is work that you really want to do in person. You want to engage with everybody. We had to do it all online. We had some fantastic help from a woman called Zora Artis, who ran all of the workshops that we ran. We involved our board. We involved volunteers that work in our warehouse. We involved our funders. We involved all of our staff. So we really looked to engage all of our key stakeholders to build that strategy. So everyone's got a stake in it. It's partly so that we can get expertise. Everyone brings a different level of expertise, knowledge and understanding of what we should be doing and how best we can achieve it. But if they feel that they've contributed, been listened to, had their say, they're more likely then to engage in achieving those goals in the future. So that's a big part of it. I think having absolute clarity. So we have 3 goals, one of which is to reach every baby and child in Victoria that needs our help. We're also saying our second goal is around reducing waste that goes to landfill. By having those 2 goals side by side, it means we stay really focused on, we do this through reuse of items that are in perfectly good condition that someone else can make use of when you finish with it. And then our third goal is around looking beyond Victoria. So once we have met that need in Victoria, we know that there are babies and children beyond Victoria that could use our help. We also know there are lots of other organisations doing what we're doing. So we're not necessarily saying we want to go and create our village in other states. What we're saying is if we have something that works and it can help others, let's look at partnerships. Let's look at ways that we can help and support others. And yes, if there are gaps, let's fill those gaps. But we wouldn't do any of that until we'd reached every baby and child that needs us in Victoria. How long will that take? Who knows? I'm hungry for us to do this fast, not because I want to do it fast, but because there are kids out there that need our help.
And so with such a huge connection and passion, I can see the passion through you to the cause. Have you yourself as a leader, and obviously being a female CEO as well, come across any gender-based experiences in your leadership journey at all?
So many, Jessica. So many. Where do I start? I mean, I've been in the workforce for over 2 decades. The workplace is a very different place than it was when I started out in my career. And it feels so weird to me to be saying things like that. It honestly does make me feel quite old now. Yeah, I mean, what was acceptable culturally? I mean, was it acceptable in the past? No, but did we call things out in the way that we do now? No, we didn't. Did we know it was okay to call things out? No, we didn't. Although throughout my career, there have been women standing up for other women. I have had an experience of being the only female leader in an all-male senior team, and some very confronting situations that I probably didn't realise affected me quite so much until I reflected back on what had happened in that organisation and in that role that I had. I was not the CEO of that organisation. I think the thing probably that saddens me the most, though, is looking back across my career, it has sometimes been other women that have prevented my progression. And I think this is an area of gender equality that we don't talk about. And I think that I do understand it. I do understand that women that went before me had to fight so hard. I think often kind of had to play the game the way the men did. It was the only way to kind of gain equity with the men. I think some women were amazing, outstanding. There are definitely women who supported me on my journey. One who I really want to talk about is a woman called Delith Morgan, who was chief executive of Breakthrough Breast Cancer in the UK. They became Breast Cancer Now. She also merged 3 organisations into one. She's always been an inspiration to me. She helped me in the early stages of my career by modelling the most amazing leadership behaviours. And to this day, I sometimes stop and think, what would Delith do?
And do you feel that you're modelling those similar behaviours that she supported you in learning through your leadership journey now to the future generation of upcoming, perhaps it's a female CEO or an aspiring female CEO sitting there thinking, I want to be a CEO like yourself when you first focused on that goal?
Truthfully, Jess, the answer to that is both yes and no. So one part of the answer to that is that I do feel that I have reached a point in my career where I didn't realise how hard I was trying to be something, to be successful. And I don't even know what success really means, if I'm honest. And I don't know if I am successful. I know I have not achieved anything like as much as I would like to have done. But I definitely feel that, and look, I'm about to turn 50, and it's kind of a moment. And I'm less concerned about that. I feel like it's just not about me anymore. And I also feel a little bit ashamed that it probably was about me in the past. Some of it was about me wanting to change the world, lead others for sure, not all about me. But, I definitely now feel my focus is around, I'm history. It's about the future. And I want to focus my attention and everything I can do on the next generation of female leaders. That is absolutely what I want to do now. And I hope that I have still got time to do that and make that, if I can, I recently gave a reference to somebody that worked with me in the UK for many years. She just became a CEO. And she is, I think, the 5th woman that has worked for me that has become a chief exec. And I'm so proud of that. But do I always model those behaviours? No. I'm not always great. I'm not.
I find that interesting because that, for me, is such an awareness to yourself and to your strengths, but also still areas for improvement, because as leaders, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing and learning as well, whether we're 21 or whether we're 50 or nearly 50. For you and going now, hitting 50 and having that new focus and
I know
outlook,
I look 21, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And having now this new goal for yourself, it's not becoming CEO, it's now inspiring and helping those future CEOs. If there was someone here today, what tips would you give them as they're about to enter into a CEO position as a female?
Well, firstly, I wouldn't give anyone any advice that was not asked for, because there's nothing worse, is there, than unsolicited advice. And actually, this is something that I learn from my team, because, they'll tell me, I do try to ask for feedback, and I do want to learn. I know the right thing to do is to say, yes, I want to learn. I'm curious. Every day is a school day, and I do feel that. I also, I'm going to be super honest with you. I also find it really frustrating. I'm like, how can I be at this stage of my life and not know it all? Like, why am I still getting things wrong?
But do you think, though, you spoke just before about the economy changing and the world changing and the culture and the environment that we're operating in. Do you think that has, though, caused for your leadership philosophy
100%.
and approach to adjust?
100%, yes. And I think I'm so much better now at just going, okay, don't try and form people in your own likeness, like that's not what it's about. And that was a massive learning. I think I've been a CEO for like 12 or 13 years now. I think the first 10 years of that, honestly, I feel really sorry for all the people that worked for me, particularly in that first role. I was chief exec of a charity in the UK called Women in Sport. And I look back, like it was my first chief exec job. You don't know what you're doing. And I think I was pretty open about that. I often said it was my first role, but I also felt like I had to get it right all the time. And I don't know, the support that you need around you, I think you underestimate the amount of support that you need around you. One of the things that I would say to somebody if they asked is learn how to manage up. So again, I think this is something that we fail to teach people, to develop in people. We focus a lot in leadership development around how to manage other people, how to influence, but it's often with a view to the people that work for you / with you, your teams, the goals that you're setting for those teams, the stakeholders that you need to engage to achieve those goals. Very rarely, if ever, have I sat in leadership development that has been about how to manage my boss and how to manage a board. And it doesn't matter whether you are, whether you're a business owner, a CEO, even the chair of a board, there's always another level. The more responsibility you have, the more skin in the game you have, the higher the stakes. And the more you need to learn about how to balance managing up, managing down, and managing across. And for me personally, I think that's the bit that I've never really been taught. And I think it's critical. And as a CEO, people talk about it being lonely at the top, and it is. And in those moments where you are on your own and you're kind of caught between what the board wants, what your stakeholders want, what your team needs, those can be incredibly challenging times. And sometimes you look around and you think, well, who can I talk to about this? Because everyone wants or needs something different. How do I work my way through that? And I think people need strategies for how to work through those kinds of situations. And I'm not sure that we're good at training people in how to do that.
And look, this is a story I've actually heard a dozen times from other CEOs, and not just females, to male CEOs as well. And they say it is lonely. They say the board's putting pressure down with asking for X, Y, Z to be delivered, but you're communicating that and the employees then are turning around and saying, oh, well, that's unreasonable, or we don't feel aligned and connected to that direction that you're taking, or a CEO has to make some pretty big decisions on direction to align to the strategy as well. How do you balance yourself, staying true to your personal values, being confident as well in yourself when you are lacking at times in that support and you are feeling at times that you're not able to bridge the gap between what the employees want and what the board needs and wants as well?
So I've had lots of different experiences with boards. And I will say, and I do genuinely mean this, I've got a really good board at the moment.
Good to hear.
But of course, the board changes every time someone new joins it or leaves it. Directors on boards have so many different motivations for being there as well. It can be very challenging. They also have different levels of connection to the organisation and different levels of understanding of the organisation. One of the things that I talked about earlier was about that co-creation of the strategy. That is one of the reasons that I believe co-creation is so important. You have to involve staff and the board together. And that's also why I brought in an external facilitator to run that process, because you have to you have to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. It's really important as a CEO that you don't ever present, well, the board says we have to do this. Sometimes you can fall into that trap. Oh, it's not me, it's the board that wants this. No. A corporate responsibility, the CEO has to have the discussion with the board and then present a united front to the staff. In the same way that I expect that of my senior team, we have the discussion in the room, we make decisions. If you didn't agree with that decision, when you leave the room, we've made the decision, you know why, you back it, you present it to your team as it's a corporate decision, and we all have to back it and we have to make it work. Let's have those open and honest discussions. Let's use data to make decisions, facts, evidence, but also accept that we can't please everybody. You got to get on board with decisions. You can absolutely ensure that if you did not agree with the decision, that's recorded and made very clear, but then you get out there and you promote it, and if you can't, then you can't be part of that leadership team anymore.
And I'm curious, because you are such a passionate person, and I love your personality because we know you're an extrovert as well.
I don't know where you got that from.
Going into conversations with the board where perhaps or even your senior leaders, but more specifically that managing up topic, when you might be misaligned with what they're thinking or you have a different opinion, what have you had to either adjust or learn to be able to communicate that effectively to them in a way that it's not coming across as defensive or, a woman being defensive in that role?
So I often come across as being defensive, Jessica. I think that is probably what people would say. It's really hard not to. Yeah. It is. I think one of the really important aspects of that is the relationship with the chair of the board. So that relationship, chair and CEO, has to be solid. If it is, then you will love your job every day. And I have worked with some brilliant chairs. My current chair, Deirdre McKechnie, she's fantastic. Jane Haynes, who was one of the chairs that I had at Women in Sport, fantastic. And others as well. But when that relationship is supportive and works really well, you can have those conversations with the chair before you get in front of the whole board. You can ask the chair, what are the other directors going to say? Who's going to like this? Who's not going to like it? What are the arguments that are going to come back at me? What are the things people are going to be concerned about? Why are they going to be concerned about that? And those are good things to know, because you should be stress testing it. What could go wrong with this? That's the board's role, and it's a good role to play. They should be doing that. They should be asking those questions. What's hard is if they make a decision that you feel is fundamentally wrong. I think if that happens, you got two choices, haven't you? You've either got to get behind it and back it, or you've got to decide if it's such a significant decision you can't back it, you have to leave.
Yeah, and jump off that journey.
Yeah, you do.
And I think it's so important, especially now, more and more people are waking up and they are wanting to work for an organisation where they feel connected to the purpose and to the cause. And for those individuals that perhaps are still on that yellow windy brick road and they're not quite sure what that might look like, what would you say to them to help them find that sense of purpose or connected to a cause?
I think there's a difference as well between your personal purpose and then a cause that you want to support. So probably a mistake I made early on in my career was to think that those two things were the same, that the cause that I worked for was everything, that it was my personal purpose as well. And I invested way too much in the organisations that I worked for. You have to remember it is also a job. And when you leave, the water closes over your head. Someone else comes in and does the next amazing thing for that organisation. And that is how it should be. You know, we are custodians of these organisations, unless we're the founder, which I think is a little bit different. Unless we set something up, we are merely custodians of the organisation for a period of time. It's important not to set the whole of your value and worth against the job that you do. And it's, you know, I'm hearing myself saying these words and I'm like, remember this, Ruth. So I think there's different things, you know, you got to find what you're passionate about, and you can be passionate about many different things, and then try and find work that connects you to some of that, but don't make it your be all and end all.
Great piece of advice.
I think the other thing to be aware of, we do get people coming to us who have had a corporate career and they'll talk about, now I want to give back. I worked in sport for a long time. You probably would believe the number of people that apply for jobs in sport because they love sport and they just want to work in sport. And they're applying for jobs and they do not match the skills that are required for that particular job. So there's a couple of things. One is, it's not just the sector. You have to be able to do the job. So build your skill set and match your skill set to the right role within the sector. And don't think that because you love sport, for example, you have a right to work in sport. You got to find the right role. Your passion for sport, if we take that example, will be really important, but you will also have to stand back and be able to look critically. So, you know, so often people think, but, you know, I'm at a high level in this sport, or I know everything about it. Therefore, why am I not being chosen? It's like, well, because we need a different skill set, or because actually we need a different perspective. So be mindful of those things, but also with charities in particular, people step out of the corporate world and they think that they're going to suddenly be able to use all of those skills and transform a charity. I think there is sometimes a sense of, you know, the corporate world knows how to do things really well and charities don't, and I'll bring all my skills in and I'll transform it. I think there's also a sense it's going to be a little bit easier, won't be results focused. It's just not true. Charities are really efficient and effective organisations. We have to do a lot with minimal resources. One of the things people coming out of the corporate sector into charities really struggle with is the fact that there's no budget. You can't spend money to find your solution. That often trips people up. And the other thing is that we are super goal-oriented. We set targets. You know, at our village, we have income targets and we have impact targets. We want to, you know, we will say, for example, this year that we want to reach 10% more babies and children than we reached last year. There's a pressure in that. Sometimes that's tough. And we all know why we're doing it, but sometimes we're really focused on the numbers because we have to be, in order to be successful and in order to achieve the big goal and vision that we talked about at the beginning. So just don't think that all of a sudden you're going to feel good every day because you're now working for something that you really care about. It's not always like that. We have tough days too. We don't see the babies and children that receive our items. Like we work in partnership with other experts. So we never actually connect to the families. So yes, when you stop and think about it, there's an element of a feel-good factor that you're doing something worthwhile and good. But it's not like every single day you're seeing that happen. And as CEO, I have to work hard to keep reminding my team of that impact and those stories, and because otherwise it's easy to lose sight of it.
Yeah. And look, I'm one of the stories, as you know, which is how we connected, and very grateful to have you here sharing all of your experience, Ruth. And to wrap up, I'd love to know, as just a final thought, what book are you reading at the moment, or what is an amazing book our audience can sink their eyes into?
The most recent book I read, we've just had an election in the UK, and I'm a bit of a politics nerd. And there's a guy who got elected to Parliament, a while ago now, but he was involved in student politics, as I was, and he was just appointed as health secretary, and he has an amazing life story. His name is Wes Streeting, and I just read his autobiography.
Oh,
and it's called something like, what's the title? It's something like A Boy, Two Bills and a Fry-Up or something. It's got this crazy title. But there's a story behind that, and it's a really good read. I would recommend it.
Amazing. We'll put it on the list. Well, look, thank you for coming in today and sharing everything to do with the purpose, the cause of our village, and we'll direct people on how they can go as well and support our village, because that purpose is so huge. And you've got some big goals there that we all need to support as well, to not only assist in sustainability with turning pre-loved into reloved, but also to touch and give all of those children as well an opportunity to be in a safe environment and have those basic needs as well. So thank you, Ruth, for being here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us in the Leader Lab. We hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as we did bringing it to you.
We have plenty of inspiring leaders and their stories to share. Ensure you don't miss these episodes by subscribing wherever you're listening to this. Links to today's guest are in the show notes, and you can find links to our socials there too.